Security grabbed Folasade Bassi by the arm before she made it past the second row of black umbrellas, and she wrenched free hard enough that 3 mourners turned to stare. "Get your hands off me," she said, voice low and furious, rain running down the back of her collar. "I'm his daughter." "Ma'am, I have a list," the guard said, not unkindly, holding a tablet toward her like a shield. "Your name isn't on it." "Then your list is wrong. Call whoever made it." Han Suk-jin had been dead for 6 days, and Folasade had flown 14 hours from Lagos to stand outside his funeral in the rain, being physically stopped from saying goodbye to a father she'd spoken to exactly 4 times in her entire life. The last call had been 11 months ago. He'd said he was proud of her. She hadn't believed him then either. "There's clearly been a mistake," said a voice behind the guard, cool and precise, in Korean-accented English. "I'll take it from here." The man who stepped forward was younger than she expected, maybe early 30s, dressed in unrelieved black, his face doing an expert job of revealing nothing. He looked at her for a long moment, and something in his expression shifted recognition, or the closest thing to it. "You're her," he said, "the Nigerian one." "I have a name." "I know you do," he turned to the guard. "Let her through, she's family." "Family? That word is about to mean something none of them expected. Stay with me. This one doesn't end where you think it does. His name was Han Jae-woo, and he was, Folasade would learn within the hour, her half-brother, the son of Han Suk-jin's Korean wife, raised in the mansion Folasade had never once been invited to, groomed since childhood to inherit a controlling stake in Han Dynamics, the electronics conglomerate their father had spent 40 years building. She had not known his name until 3 days ago, when a lawyer's email informed her she was named in the will. She had not known about the third sibling at all until she walked into the reading of the will itself and found a stranger already seated in the front row. A tall man with locks pulled back neatly, unmistakably mixed like her, radiating the specific discomfort of someone who also hadn't wanted to be there. "I'm Baraka," he said, extending a hand she didn't immediately take. "Kenyan Korean. I assume you're the Nigerian half." "Folasade," she said, "and I'd appreciate not being referred to as a percentage." "Get used to it," Baraka said, not unkindly. "That's mostly what today is going to be about. 3 siblings, 3 continents, one dead father who apparently kept them all a secret from each other. If that doesn't already feel like a story worth staying for, wait until you hear the will." The lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Attorney Seo, read the terms without softening a single word of them. Mr. Han's 40% controlling stake in Han Dynamics is to be divided equally among his 3 children, Han Jae-woo, Baraka Han, and Folasade Bassi, under one binding condition. She looked up over her glasses. "None of the shares vest until all 3 of you have worked together in this building for 1 full calendar year. If any one of you walks away before the year is complete, the shares default entirely to the remaining company board, not to the siblings who stayed." The room went very quiet. "He's punishing us," Jae-woo said finally, jaw tight. "Even dead, he's still finding ways to control people." "He's trying to force something," Attorney Seo said carefully. "Whether that's control or something closer to an apology, I couldn't say. He wrote the clause himself 6 months before he died. He knew he was sick." "Convenient," Baraka muttered, "that we find out we're related the same week we're told we have to share an office." Folasade said nothing. She was doing the math on 14 years of birthdays her father hadn't called for. Weighed against the fortune, he'd apparently spent his final months arranging for her to inherit only if she agreed to be trapped in it. "If you think this sounds like a business deal, wait, because grief doesn't care about spreadsheets, and neither do these 3. The first month was a war conducted through calendar invites and clipped emails. Jae-woo ran meetings like a man defending territory, cutting off Baraka's questions before they finished forming, addressing Folasade with the exaggerated patience people use for children or foreigners, which, in his eyes, she supposed she was both. "You don't know how this company works," he told her in front of 4 department heads, after she questioned a supplier contract that was quietly bleeding money. "Maybe let people who grew up in it lead." I grew up watching my mother stretch $9 into a week's groceries while your father sent this company private jets, Folasade said, not raising her voice. I know exactly how money disappears when nobody's watching it closely enough. Ask your CFO where the 12% margin loss on the Busin contract actually went before you tell me what I don't understand. The room went silent in a different way this time. Baraka, to his credit, didn't take sides, not out of diplomacy, she realized eventually, but because he genuinely didn't care enough yet to invest in either sibling's approval. He showed up, did competent work, and left the building the second the clock allowed it, treating the entire arrangement like a well-paid prison sentence he intended to serve without incident. You two can burn the building down fighting over a dead man's approval, he told them both, the one time they were alone together in the executive kitchen. I'm just here for the shares. I have a foundation back home that needs funding, and I'm not interested in whatever this is between you two. There's nothing between us, Jaiwoo said too quickly. Sure, Baraka said, not looking up from his coffee. That's why you've redone the seating chart 4 times this month to keep her desk facing away from the executive floor. 3 strangers, 1 inheritance, and apparently more tension than any of them are willing to name out loud yet. If you're already picking a side, tell me who in the comments, because it's about to get a lot more complicated. The margin loss Folasade had flagged in that first meeting didn't go away. It got worse. By the 3rd month, the Busin contract discrepancy had grown into a pattern, small, deliberately unremarkable losses scattered across 4 different divisions, each one too minor to trigger an audit on its own, each one signed off by the same executive. Choi Di-hyun, the company's longtime COO and their father's most trusted advisor for over 2 decades. He basically raised us, Jaiwoo said, when Folasade first laid out the pattern across a conference table. He's not skimming from the company, he built half of it. I'm not saying he's skimming, Folasade said. I'm saying somebody is, and every thread I pull leads to a division he personally oversees. You've been here 12 weeks, Jaiwoo snapped. He's been here 26 years. And in 12 weeks, I've found what 26 years apparently missed. Baraka, uncharacteristically, leaned forward. Show me the numbers. He'd trained as an accountant before switching to nonprofit work, a detail neither sibling had known until that exact moment, and it took him 40 minutes with Folasade's spreadsheet to go pale. This isn't sloppy accounting, he said quietly. This is a structure. Someone built this to look like noise so nobody would ever add it up. A conglomerate, a trusted executive, 3 estranged siblings who were never supposed to work together long enough to notice. If you think you know where this is going, you might be wrong, because the person about to be exposed isn't who you expect. They confronted Choi together, the first time all 3 of them had agreed on anything without an argument first. He didn't deny it so much as he recontextualized it, calm in a way that unsettled all 3 of them more than outrage would have. Your father knew, Choi said, folding his hands on his desk. Or at least, he suspected, near the end. That's exactly why he wrote that clause into the will, not for sentiment, whatever comfortable story you've been telling yourselves. He didn't trust the board to catch it. He needed people with real ownership stakes who'd actually look. So you're saying he used us, Folasade said slowly, as an audit mechanism. I'm saying he was dying and out of better options, and 3 estranged children with equal shares and no loyalty to each other or to me were the only people in this building he could be certain wouldn't simply look away. Choi's expression didn't waver. I'd hoped you'd take longer to find it, long enough for the vesting clause to fail and the shares to default to the board, where I already control 4 of 7 votes. You were counting on us to fail each other, Jaiwoo said, something cracking open in his voice for the first time since the funeral. I was counting on the 3 of you being exactly what your father made you, Choi said. Strangers with nothing in common but resentment. I didn't account for competence. That was my mistake. He wanted them broken. He got 3 people who finally had a reason to stop fighting each other. Whether that reason is enough to actually make them a family, that's the part even they don't know yet. The board vote to remove Choi took place 11 days later, and it was, By any measure, a formality. The evidence Baraka had assembled left no real room for defense. But the 11 days leading up to it were the first time the three siblings worked as something other than reluctant co-workers. Folasade found herself, at 1 a.m, sitting on the floor of the records room with Jai Wu, cross-referencing supplier invoices by hand because the digital archive from that period had been deliberately corrupted. "Why did he never call more?" she asked, not looking up from the papers, surprising herself with the question. "Your mother knew about me." "She knew," Jai Wu said. "I don't think either of them knew how to explain it to me as a child, and then I think it just became easier not to. He wasn't a brave man about difficult conversations. He was good at company strategy and terrible at everything that actually mattered." He was quiet for a moment. "I used to think you were the reason he was distracted, some scandal my mother made him hide. I didn't think about what it must have been like to be the one actually hidden." "I used to think you had everything," Folasade said. "The house, the name, him actually present in your life." "He was present the way a shareholder is present," Jai Wu said. "Quarterly, on schedule, rarely more." Across the room, Baraka, who'd stayed silent through most of the exchange, finally spoke without looking up from his own stack of papers. "For what it's worth, my mother never let him send money. She said it would let him think buying distance was the same as being a father." He paused. "I used to hate her for it. Now I think she was the only one of the 4 adults in this mess who had any dignity left." This is the part no thumbnail can capture. 3 siblings, 1 o'clock in the morning, finally talking honestly for the first time in their lives, not because they chose to, but because a dead man's will trap them into it. If this hit you at all, let me know in the comments. Choi was removed by unanimous board vote. Criminal referral followed within the month. Quietly, without the public spectacle their father's name might once have demanded. Folasade suspected the family lawyer had called in more favors than anyone would ever admit to protect what remained of the company's reputation for the sake of the employees who had nothing to do with any of it. The vesting clause completed 9 months later. On the day the shares finally transferred, Attorney Seo met with all 3 siblings together, sliding 3 identical folders across the table. "You're free to walk away now, all of you, exactly as entitled," she said. "Some families use this exact moment to finally split for good, now that the obligations expired." Folasade looked at her folder for a long moment before pushing it back across the table. "I don't want the shares," she said. Both her brothers turned to stare at her. "I didn't do this year for a percentage of a company my father built without me," she continued. "I did it because it turned out to be the only way I was ever going to actually meet either of you. I'll sign whatever's needed to formally decline my portion, split it between the 2 of you, or let it default to a charitable trust in his name. I genuinely don't care. But I'm not walking away from this table because the paperwork's finally done. I'm staying because you 2 are the only blood family I have left who actually know what it was like to be raised by his absence instead of his presence." Jai Wu was quiet for a long time. "That's the first thing either of you has said all year that had nothing to do with the company." "Don't get used to it," Folasade said. "I still think you run meetings like a man defending a country that no longer exists." "And I still think you assume every silence is a slight," Jai Wu said, but there was no real edge in it anymore. Baraka finally laughed, the first real laugh either sibling had heard from him in 11 months. "You 2 are going to be insufferable at family dinners. I want that on record before I agree to any of this. No wedding, no perfect ending tied in a bow. Just 3 strangers who started this year as line items in a dead man's will and ended it as something that, against every reasonable expectation, actually resembles a family. If that's the kind of ending you didn't see coming. Let me know and subscribe, because the next story goes somewhere just as unexpected. See you in the next one.